Roster news, the Texans experience may surprise you, plus the real narratives in this game, not the fake ones. We got a lot to get into. It's playoff time. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localized. Every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localized every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too plugged in daily.
It is the Locker Room, and the playoffs are upon us. Texans in the playoffs, playoff coverage on Houston football, as well as SNL and the Locker Room, presented by the greatness that is TDECU. Go to tdecu.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card. 15% off at the team shop, just in time for the
playoffs.
Yes. Shout out to TDECU for all they do, and they'll guide you through the process. It's one of the best. It's one of the best establishments in town. Cody's got his debit card, and he hasn't quite showed the number yet, so we can't quite jack him. I want to get into the real narratives of this playoff run, and shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the video. Download the Sleeper app. Get a 100% bonus up to $100. Use that promo code Locker. So there's real narratives and there's fake narratives. And I actually think the word narrative is amusing at times, because a lot of times it's kind of dramatic. Sometimes it's someone whining and saying, oh, that's the narrative that you're pushing. And a lot of times it's really just someone else's opinion. But a narrative, and let's just get literal here. And I don't like to get literal, but at times I do. A narrative is defined as a spoken or written account of connected events, a story. In other words, it's not as dramatic as a lot of people make it. A lot of time it's someone trying to push their point and dismiss another point by saying there is a narrative. But in this instance, I do think there are some interesting narratives about this Texans Steelers matchup, and I'm going to list the narratives, the real narratives, 1 through 6. And the one that is dead, that D'Amico Ryans can try to keep alive, but it's going to look sillier and sillier, is the nobody believes in us rally cry. It's gone. It might not be gone in the locker room, the Texans locker room, but it's gone here. It doesn't exist. The Texans are a popular pick. The honeymoon phase is over. We know what the expectations were. They knew what the expectations were, and they're getting a lot of love nationally. Now, we've seen some of the best teams in sports history run with this and rally around this. And if the Texans want to try that, that's fine. Go ahead. But we know better. The nobody believes in us rally cry, it died. That we overcame this and nobody expected us to be here, it died when you started 0-3, and it was always an eye roll from me. But I just want to provide a visual and a perspective of how this Texans team is sitting right now heading into the playoffs in comparison to other AFC teams. And I've decided to focus on the two most important roles on a football team. And we know that the defense is the straw that stirs the drink for the Texans. But in this instance, we're going to focus on the quarterback, and we're going to focus on the head coach, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, in relation to the other head coach QB duos in the playoffs. And this is an interesting thing when you look at it, because there are some coaches and quarterbacks that have a lot of experience, but as far as being a duo and going to war, for lack of a better term, together, there's not much of an advantage that these other teams have over the Texans. And here it is right here. So D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud have appeared in 4 playoff games as a duo. That's the second most of all AFC teams. The first 2 rows is the games that the head coach and QB playoff games that they've played in, the total. The second is the amount of wins. And then the third is the head coach's overall record in the playoffs and the QB's overall record in the playoffs. So D'Amico and CJ, 4 is the second most of all of these duos. Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, they've appeared in 13 playoff games. They've won 8. The overall record is 8-5. And Josh Allen has a record of 8-5. That's a mistype right there, but 8-5, exact same as McDermott. Sean Payton and Bo Nix. They've only appeared in one playoff game together. It was last year. They lost to the previously mentioned duo of McDermott and Josh Allen. So they lost that matchup. And outside of that, that's all the experience Bo Nix has. Sean Payton has appeared in 18 playoff games as a head coach. He's 9-9. He has the Super Bowl run with the Saints, but he's 9-9 as a coach, as a head coach. So there's that. Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, they've only appeared in one playoff game together. They didn't win. We kind of remember that one relatively well. It was a loss. It was one of those things where D'Amico Ryans, much like he has Josh Allen, D'Amico Ryans ended up getting the best of him, which he's been known to do. Let me correct this chart. So that's where we're at with that. Then we go to Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. They've never appeared in a playoff game together. It's never happened. Trevor Lawrence has appeared in 2 playoff games. He's 1-1. So this will be Liam Cohen's first playoff appearance. Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers. They've never appeared in a playoff game together. They've never won. Tomlin in his career as a head coach, 8-11. Aaron Rodgers is 12-10. A lot of experience, but not together. And then Mike Vrabel's 2-3. We know he has a lot of experience as a coach, but as the Patriots coach, he's never appeared. And then Drake May, this will be his first playoff start. So when you talk about experience and it factors in, and my ADHD did not want me to let that one little mistake stick. So this is the final chart. We look at it here. I did that on the go. That's where it's at. So the second most experienced QB HC duo is CJ Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. And then everyone else is going to battle. Now, does Aaron Rodgers' playoff experience matter and Mike Tomlin's when it's individual? We'll see. But Aaron Rodgers isn't what he once was. He's got a hell of a playoff record. That's pretty solid. 12-10 is solid. But will it be the same with them as a duo? Don't know. So that's where they're sitting when it comes to the experience. These are the real narratives, I think, heading into this game. And be sure to join SNL at Spanky's this Friday. This is going to be a crowded one. John McClain's going to be there. I anticipate a full house. We've been filling up the back room relatively easily. I anticipate us having to make a little bit more space this week. I think this is going to be a really, really, really big event. And a lot of people are excited for the playoffs. And you have the CFP, and you also have the homemade dough, the homemade sauce, the best happy hour in town. So we'll be at Spanky's. We look forward to seeing you there on Friday. These are the top narratives that I think are actually tangible when it comes to this matchup. And I have 6. Some of them with historic implications. Narrative 1 is this the end of Aaron Rodgers' career? You saw how emotional he was after the Baltimore win. We know he's old. We've been speculating about Aaron Rodgers retiring. He's almost catching Brett Favre when it comes to speculation about whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to retire. It's almost becoming Brett Favre-like. And he was even asked on the field after the game against the Ravens about a possible retirement. It's one of the worst kept secrets. Could this be the final time that we see Aaron Rodgers on a football field? I think the possibilities are relatively high when it comes to that. There's been a lot going on. He's in his 40s. He's pretty cooked, pretty washed. But that will be one of the top narratives, one of the top storylines. Narrative number 2 is, can CJ Stroud take the next step? I don't think CJ Stroud has to put on heroic performances against this group that we just laid out. And I'll pull it back up. You might have to go toe-to-toe with the ghost of Aaron Rodgers. Maybe not. You might have a better supporting cast to where you don't even have to outplay him. Josh Allen, the defense has already shown that they've had your back in those instances. Justin Herbert, he probably just outplayed you a couple of weeks ago. No, he did, and they still lost. Trevor Lawrence, we've seen how that goes. That's a back and forth. And then Drake May's never been there, and Bo Nix has only been there once. So it's not like he's having to outduel Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or anything like that. But can CJ Stroud take the next step? I brought up something yesterday, and I'm always appreciative, aware, and amused of kind of the meat writing nature that often comes with people defending quarterbacks. It's not everyone. I think there's a lot of people that have realistic views of CJ Stroud. I think there's some people that are a little bit too hard on him. And I think there's some people that are always going to blame everyone else and anything else whenever anything's said about the quarterback. And that's fine, because quarterback hell is not a fun place to be. And when you have someone who even has an ounce of potential to be a really, really good quarterback, you want to ride and die with them. But sometimes it does look foolish. And sometimes the goalpost does move. But yesterday on the show, I brought up that CJ Stroud has lacked mobility, and that if the Texans are going to win in the playoffs, they might need CJ Stroud to use his legs a little bit. And I talked about his mobility, and I said he was one of the least mobile quarterbacks in the postseason, and I brought up post-concussion. Because I think post-concussion is important to bring up when you're talking about CJ Stroud and his willingness to use his legs. Last year in the playoffs, CJ Stroud was more than willing to use his legs against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was more than willing. CJ Stroud last year in the playoffs, he had 42 yards rushing in each of the games, and they needed every bit of it. I know that ended up getting away from the Chargers, but last year in the playoffs, in the 2 playoff games, CJ Stroud had 42 yards rushing in those playoff games. 42 each. That's great. That's fantastic. You'll take that every time. But let's look at what's happened this season since he had the concussion. And this is in hindsight. Like, this is we try to get out in front of the questions that we ask and the concerns that we may have, and kind of assess where those things land and how they end up based on what happens on the field. But since CJ Stroud has returned from the concussion, he's rushed for 20 yards in 5 games. 20 yards rushing since returning from the concussion in 5 games. We even saw against Indianapolis, we saw him run 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage and throw the rock and get the illegal forward pass penalty. So he hasn't been as mobile as he was before. In fact, CJ Stroud has 209 yards rushing on the season, and only 20 of those are the last 5 games. He missed 3.5. Here's a stat for you. CJ Stroud had 20 plus yards rushing in 6 of the 8 games pre-concussion. He had 12 in the game that he actually left. So in 6 of the 8 games, one of them in which he left early, the one that he didn't, CJ Stroud had 20 plus yards rushing, and he has 20 yards rushing combined since he came back from the concussion. Here's the game log. We can look at this. This is where the rushing yards are right here. You look at this. 32, 27, 22, 30, 25, 30, and then 12 before he left the Broncos game. It was a talking point. The talking point was, man, CJ Stroud's really doing a good job of using his legs. And that's been something that we've been talking about with CJ Stroud since Ohio State. Now, you look at the concussion, after seeing all these stats, 32, 27, 22, sometimes you just need the visual. 30, 25, 30. I know we watch every snap. But then you go to Indianapolis. This is where he threw the ball 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. 0, 5, 10, 0, 0, 5. That's 20 yards in 5 games. It's not going to work in the playoffs. It's going to be some ugly games they're going to need every bit of CJ Stroud using his yards. Now, again, I mentioned the encouraging thing, and maybe this goes back to my favorite term of the playoffs, which I think there's a drinking game that people play now. But maybe he flips the switch and maybe he goes back to his ways. But if it is a fear thing, regardless of the what or the why, it really doesn't matter. Like we can sit here and we can say, well, he's scared post concussion. I don't care if he's scared. I don't care if he's not scared. It doesn't matter. He's going to have to use his legs for the Texans to reach their peak and reach their ultimate goal, especially with how flawed the Texans offense is. And to put in perspective how flawed the Texans offense is, you look at Pittsburgh and you kind of frown upon it. And I find myself doing this as well. You look at Pittsburgh, and when you're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite the fact we've talked about how much this is a dog-butted offense and how much Nick makes us sick. Despite that, we look at the Steelers offense, and by the way, the strength of schedules in the playoffs, the Texans have the first toughest schedule and the Steelers have the second. And Cleveland's a bad team, but Cleveland's one of the better defenses, and they have to face them a couple times a season. But you look at the points per game, the Texans average 22 more yards per game, but the points per game, the Texans average 23.8, the Steelers average 23.4. Think about that for a second. We talk about the struggles on offense, and we look at Pittsburgh, and the ghost of Aaron Rodgers is what I say. Arthur Smith is an idiot. Who are these skill position guys? The Texans and Steelers both average a little over 23 points per game. So that's where the offenses are, and that's kind of where the margin for error has to be. So CJ Stroud, if he's going to take the next step, he doesn't have to be Superman. You can just win a couple playoff games no matter how ugly it is, but you're going to have to use your legs. 20 yards in 5 games is not going to cut it. So that's something that CJ Stroud's going to have to do. That's something he's going to have to use. And when you talk about mobility and you talk about what he's been since he come back, you don't have to be a meat rider if you're watching the game. Don't ride the meat, watch the game. CJ Stroud has not been mobile since he came back, and he's been very hesitant. So call it what you want, make whatever excuse you want. That's just the reality of the situation. It's not going to fly in the postseason. And it was something that we talked about when he was coming back from the concussion. What would it look like? The using of the legs has been pretty non-existent. So that's something to keep an eye on, and that's something that he's definitely going to have to do. I think that he'll be able to do it. I don't know. Like, does he trust his ability to slide? I think that was part of the problem to begin with. You know, he kind of joked about learning to slide in the offseason, and then shortly after that, you saw what you saw. Will he be able to do that? He's going to need to. Shout out my boy Dan the man out at Texans Turf. Texans Turf. It's so green, it's so clean that if you do know how to slide, it'd feel good if you slide on that Texans Turf. My dog loves it. My daughter loves it. I shopped around before I became a customer, and before we started the partnership, I was already a customer. It's the best. There's a lot of these turf companies that try to rip you off. They half-ass. They just basically slop carpet down. That's not what they do here. It has the drainage. It's almost like grass. I still water it. You clean it. It drains. It's awesome. It's always green. It's always clean. It's as green now as it's been the whole time. And it's the best thing I did for my backyard. I got neighbors who've done it. We got viewers who've done it. You will not regret it. If you've thought about getting turf, do not shop around. Trust me, I did. It's not fun. You will be discouraged, but you'll be encouraged if you let Dan do for you what he did for me. Go to TexansTurf.com. Check out all the work they've done. Whether you want a putting green, playing surface, they got you covered. CJ Stroud could probably even slide on that Texans turf. So there you go. On the chat, Tequila. I knew this was going to come up. Yo, Landry, is it true we released Wallace because he was friendly to SNL? Who's playing alongside Bullock? Yeah, we got to pour one out for Kayvon Wallace. There is not a curse, though. There is not a curse, though, because there have been some guys who've done the SNL interviews and they've had pretty good run of it. But I think this means that Reed comes back on Thursday. I think that's probably the reason that this decision was made. I think it would have been made no matter what. I think there's a chance they don't lose Kayvon Wallace's number. There's been a few guys that they've released and brought back. Jawar Jordan's one of them. But they like Reed better. And quite frankly, Reed's played well. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I would anticipate they don't have practice tomorrow. Everything's pushed back a day. So their first practice will actually be on Thursday. I anticipate we see Jalen Reed out there. And I think that has as much to do with it as the performance that Wallace had or how he played. So that's what all eyes will be on that. I would think that we do see Reed out there. That would be my prediction. I think we do see Jalen Reed, and we'll see how he handles a very tough matchup against the Steelers. There's some intermediate options, and they will test you. And if Aaron Rodgers smells blood, he'll pick on you. So he might, if you're a rookie and Aaron Rodgers knows it, there's a chance, whether it's the tight end, whether it's some of the backs, he might try to seek you out. Now, sometimes he can overthink things. I think we kind of saw a little bit of that in the Baltimore game, but Aaron Rodgers will definitely, he will definitely seek you out. There's zero doubt about that. Again, shout out to TDCU for sponsoring playoff coverage here in the locker room, as well as on SNL. TDCU.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card, just like CJ Stroud does. Membership required, insured by the NCUA. So narrative number 3, we talked about the future of Aaron Rodgers. How about the future of Mike Tomlin? How about that? John Harbaugh, 18 years gone from Baltimore. Sometimes it's just time to split. Sometimes it just runs its course and it's time to split in a lot of industries, whether it's media, whether there's a lot of times where the partnership isn't bad, but sometimes it's just time to split. And maybe that's the case with Mike Tomlin too. Maybe this is the last hoorah for the two best coaches in the AFC North, the two most successful guys up there in the AFC North. Maybe it's that time. I think that it's possible that Mike Tomlin goes into TV. I would not be shocked. I think Mike Tomlin right now, if he wants to, I think Mike Tomlin could probably make 8 figures on TV. I think he's one of those guys that would just be incredible. And it's probably his long-term future. And we've heard rumors about McVay and stuff, but I think even Mike Tomlin would even be better. So maybe we see Mike Tomlin going to TV and getting some of that money. Quarterback hell's not fun. He makes it look a lot better than a lot of these coaches do. You can call it a mediocre treadmill, but the way in which they're just always there, albeit with a limited ceiling, there's a lot of props, but at some point that's got to get old. If Aaron Rodgers is done, Mike Tomlin's going to be in the quarterback business again, and he's going to be in the same situation he's been in where you're drafting in the 20s. There's really no young quarterbacks to get, and you're kicking the tires on another guy. that's on the market. Is that a fun life to live? Perhaps, but at some point, just go on TV and make some bread. So we started this off talking about the head coach QB duos, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers. I could easily see this being both of their last dances. I won't say their last game. I do think the Texans win it, but I won't just completely be dismissive in that manner. But I think there's a chance that it's both of their last run, and we don't see Mike Tomlin or Aaron Rodgers for a while. Maybe Mike Tomlin eventually comes back. I don't know. He's not overly old. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's a real tangible narrative. Next narrative, we're going to measure the Texans' tough offseason decisions. This is the measuring stick. This is one game away from how far they got with Bobby Slowick. They said bye-bye to Bobby Slowick. You're measuring that.
Damn it, Bobby.
How does Nick Caley handle the pressure? I've started to compile stats of Nick Caley in primetime games. Nick. He struggles. We'll get into that a little bit tomorrow. Nick Caley in primetime. Is he cracked for it? Is he ready to go? But the tough offseason decision, obviously, with Nick Caley will be measured. I think the rookies, the draft will be measured. I think this is a good draft class. Is it just an incredibly awesome draft class right off the top? There's going to be a lot of rookies that are tested in a hostile environment. You're relying a lot on rookies in this game, a lot. Think about this. So you have a starting left tackle in Ariante Ursary, who's a rookie, who is going to be going against either Highsmith or TJ Watt. You have a running back in Woody Marks, who's your RB1. He's going to be carrying the load when it comes to that. You have a starting wide receiver in Jaden Higgins, who's going to be opposite Nico Collins. Might have to step up depending on how the Steelers elect to cover Nico Collins. And then you have Jalen Knoll, who's going to be returning punts and kicks for you. One mistake can end your season. We talked about the 2011 49ers who got to the NFC Championship game with David Akers kicking as many field goals as Fairbairn. You know why they didn't make it to the Super Bowl? Because they had someone muff a punt. Rookie like Jalen Knoll, pretty important. And then we just mentioned Jalen Reed. The two guys that were in front of him in camp, CJ Gardner-Johnson, he got kicked to the curb. Or he's in Chicago. He's doing his thing in Chicago. And then MJ Stewart went down. So you're going to be relying on him to start? Is that what's going to happen? Is Jalen Reed just go right into the starting lineup? You're relying very heavily on rookies. It's not an end-all, be-all. I still think there's a lot of optimism, but they will be tested. But that's just kind of part of the tough decisions that you made. But the offensive coordinator is going to be measured. The offensive line, I think you're fine. Laramie Tunsil, my God, another offensive line coach got fired with Laramie Tunsil in the building. How can that happen? How can that happen? Laramie Tunsil. Cliff Kingsbury gone. This is the second straight year that an offensive coordinator has been fired with Laramie Tunsil in the building and an offensive line coach. Not great, but somewhat amusing. But I think you've been validated in that. But the Nick Caley thing will be put to test. It will be put to test. So that's narrative number 4. Narrative number 5. Is the Texans defense all-time great? We've seen all these stats. There's people searching for nicknames. By the way, Tyler Dunn did an awesome long form piece. I retweeted it on X at Landry Locker. I don't know. A lot of people don't like to read long articles. It's long as fuck. But long form is kind of a dying art. A lot of these companies, they hire like basically independent contracting kids, and the writing sucks. But this is like old school Sports Illustrated features where it's like 8 pages, 9 pages. That's the quality that he puts out. And he's also on his own, taking the right path. But it's good to see some long form. If you want to read about the Texans defense, Azeez Al-Shire, all that, strong recommendation for this. It's 2 parts. But if you just want to sit down and read some awesome long form, shout out to Tyler Dunn. He was here for a week, and I very much appreciated reading some long form. It's a lost art. No, a lot of people don't like to read that shit though, but I do. And I think you should definitely check it out. I retweeted it on X at Landry Locker, so check that out. It's good. It's good. It's not that, hey, let's let this guy say he writes for Sports Illustrated and he's not really a writer, but you still have the Sports Illustrated. It's not that. It's quality stuff. Independent quality stuff. It's good to support the long form. So go check it out. Narrative 5 is the Texans defense all-time great. We see all these stats. You're going to have to, like, when you talk about a really, really good defense, and we've seen it with some defenses that perhaps aren't even all-time great, but I always mention these teams, the Jets with Sanchez and Rex Ryan, and the Jags with Blake Bortles. A really, really, really good defense can get you to a conference championship game. It's not far-fetched. Especially when you look back at this, and I'm gonna circle it back here. But when you circle it back to this, and you see that 3 of the teams have quarterbacks who have never gone to battle with their current coach. 3 of the quarterbacks have never won a playoff game. And the guy who's won the most playoff games is old and you're favored to beat. The defense should be able to have some success, wouldn't you think? I mean, the best quarterback in here, the Texans kind of own in Josh Allen. So is this defense all-time great, or is this just going to be a defense that we just kind of think about? I know that D'Amico Ryans wasn't the performance. He wasn't pleased with the performance of the defense. But it's got an opportunity to show that it is an all-time great defense. So that's narrative 5. Narrative 6 is a D'Amico test. D'Amico, no O. Just like Dirk Nowitzki in his early day, we called him Irk. IRK, no D. He had no defense. Is D'Amico Ryans D'Amico with no offense? Is that going to be a thing? And quite frankly, does it matter? Is his defense able to carry him in spite of the offense? Or is he going to oversee an offense that flips the switch in the playoffs? The D'Amico test is in full effect. People who are hesitant about hiring and are hesitant about hiring a defensive-minded coach, that whole theory, that narrative, in the spirit of what we're talking about right now, that'll be put to test. So the D'Amico test will be something to keep an eye on as well. So those are the 6 tangible narratives, not these imaginary narratives that will get thrown out there, the us against them. But I think the CJ Stroud using his legs in the middle of all this, like the bullet points to all this, I think it's really something to keep an eye on and something to watch for. So those are the real narratives heading into Pittsburgh. Did I miss any? Let me know. It's really all connected to the offseason decisions, the offense, and all of that. So it's going to be fun. Business is going to pick up, and they'll return to the practice field in 2 days. It's not going to be 1 day. Another question that you got to wonder is, how will the Texans cover DK Metcalf? DK Metcalf coming off the drama with the fan, didn't really punch him. Quite frankly, the fan looked like a jackass with that press conference. He looked like an absolute weasel. Look at that face. He's pissed. He's pissed. You know he's about to get asked about the drama. Let's hear what DK Metcalf had to say about that. This is on X. I want to credit the guy. This is from Nick Faraball, who is a Steelers beat reporter. Let's hear DK Metcalf. God, he's pissed. Let's hear DK Metcalf explain it. That girl's like, oh my God, he's going to ask the question. Good. Thank goodness he's going to ask the tough question. Look at the girl. She's like, he's going to ask it, but I'm going to use the clip anyways, and I'm probably going to throw him a softball. I'm just kidding. I don't know what her work is. I'm just kidding. But let's hear the DK Metcalf interaction. I'm looking forward to this.
Can you explain to us what happened in Detroit?
You had to be the one to ask him. No, I can't.
What was that process like as far as the appeals and talking with the NFL? Just kind of, can you walk us through that process?
I can't walk y'all through nothing that happened.
Were you surprised that the appeal was about and it didn't go the other way?
Yeah, but that's all I can say.
I respect that you don't and can't really go into a lot of it, but is there anything you would like to clarify about misinformation or anything else?
I can't say nothing about what happened.
Is that because there's
I
ongoing
can't say anything about what happened for the 5th time.
How excited are you for Monday night to get out there, be back out there with
Thank
your
you,
teammates?
I'm excited to be back in the field around my teammates, being in meetings, practice, all the things that, encompass a week of preparation.
When you expressed the emotions and how hard it was to watch, was there, from your own point of view, a sense of, just feeling responsible for not being out there emotionally?
No, sir, because, I feel full responsibility for my actions, and, that's it. But, I have the utmost respect and, confidence in my teammates for still going out there and performing to the best of their abilities.
All right, there you go. So that's DK Metcalf. How will they cover him? Is it ho-hum as is? Do you see Stingley shadow him? How will they handle that? It's one of those things that DeMeco Ryans is going to have to figure out. We point back to the Cleveland. Derek Stingley shadowing and shutting down Amari Cooper, about a month or so removed from Amari Cooper just completely lighting them up. How will they cover DK Metcalf? Does DK Metcalf warrant Derek Stingley following him around? There once upon a time, the Texans didn't believe in that. Jackson Smith and Jigba, they didn't do it with. They didn't really press either. I know DeMeco Ryans kind of got awkward about that when DJ Bieniemy asked him, but they didn't really press. DK Metcalf is not Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he is really the only resemblance of a really good receiver that this team has. I mean, their offensive MVP was Gainwell. Gainwell's a hell of a player, but he's your offensive MVP. That's pretty nuts. That probably hasn't happened since college for him. So how do the Texans cover DK Metcalf? And hell, does it kind of spark the Steelers to have DK Metcalf back? They traded a lot for him. And DK Metcalf was one of those names on the market that got a lot of attention this offseason. What does it look like? How do they cover him? How does DeMeco handle that? That's one of his biggest challenges and how he's going to figure it out. He's not going to tell us how. We're going to see it, but we've seen him handle that in different ways. Seen him handle it in different ways. So there you go. The debate is being embraced when it comes to CJ Stroud. There's a lot of thoughts. Shout out to the people up in Nashville, Austin, all that. Hope to see some people at Spanky's. We've been seeing people at Spanky's from different spots. We've seen people from Florida that were coming in town for the game. We've seen people, my boy from California, some people from Georgia, Indianapolis. We've had a lot of people from different areas come through at Spanky's. It's been phenomenal. And John McClain's going to be there. You don't want to miss that. So we will be there this Friday, myself and Cody Stoots. Live broadcast at 4. Practice got pushed back a little bit, so normally we go hang out there at 2. Probably be a little bit later, but it'll be a fun time, as it always is. I want to hammer this too. The Texans are really healthy this time of the year. They're really healthy. It's a healthy ball club. relatively speaking, compared to other teams around the league, this is a healthy bunch. Offense, all hands on deck. Besides Brevin Jordan, all hands on deck. Joe Mixon doesn't count. Joe Mixon doesn't count. He was never going to be a part of this team. They just didn't want to say it. They were awkward about it. But on offense, you got all hands on deck. Defense, the guys that you rely on most, they're there. You're going to have to overcome some things, but that's not unique to just the Texans. So you're healthy. You also have a nice path. It's really, I know that this is early in the D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud era, but I was talking to my pops about this. And by the way, we'll trail Pops his sleeper pick later this week. He's going to have to step it up for the playoffs. He's actually 5 for his last 6, and the only one he's lost by a half yard. So if you haven't downloaded the sleeper app, do so. Whatever you put in gets matched when you use the promo code LOCKER for first-time users, and we got you covered on that. And we'll trail Pops' picks. Much better than mine. But I was talking to him, and he said this. We were talking about it, but I think he just basically said what we've been kind of talking about, but he just said it in absolute manner. This is a good path for the Texans. And we've laid it out. We've talked about it in every way, shape, or form when it comes to health, when it comes to opponents, all that type of stuff. But I will say, and I would take a bet right now, I don't think that the path to making a run will ever be laid out this nicely for the Texans in the D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud era, however long that lasts. It's not going to happen. I know I'm not sitting here saying that Kansas City is going to wake from the dead and they're going to be the team to beat again. They're going to be motivated, though. Baltimore, the down year that they've had, who knows if they ever come back. But all these teams that you're looking at that aren't as battle-tested as you, they're getting better. And the real separator in situations like these is the quarterback. Unfortunately for the Texans, whether it's the surroundings or whatever, the quarterback hasn't really separated himself from these other guys. I don't know what the excuse is. Is it the system? I don't know. I know Sam Darnold's in the playoffs for the second straight year with a different team and 2 different systems. So we throw out this system thing a lot. Well, it's a new system. Maybe it's just the wrong system, which is extremely possible. And maybe that goes back to the D'Amico thing. But you pull this thing back up again, and you look at it, and Trevor Lawrence is in a new system. Aaron Rodgers is in a new system. Drake May's in a new system. Like it's not that unique to have new systems. Now, whether it's the right or wrong one goes back to kind of the decisions and stuff that we talked about. But regardless of that, and regardless of the situation, it's hard to imagine that it's ever going to be laid out this perfectly for the Texans. Does that mean that they win? We'll see. We'll see how they handle that, but it's not going to be this easy. You got the opponent that you wanted in the first round more than anyone else. You got the inexperienced quarterbacks and coaches. Your superpower is fully healthy, and the weak side of the ball is fully healthy as well at this point. So it's not going to be laid out any better than it currently is for the Texans. The time is now. The time is now. There's no scenario where if the season ends on Monday that you feel good about where the state of this organization is. And I'm not sitting here saying, well, they must get to the AFC Championship game. You got to see what it looks like in round 2. But this is laid out perfectly. And they need to take advantage of it. The time is now. And it's gonna get more and more difficult to get to this situation for a number of things. You heard Dan Campbell last year. What did Dan Campbell say? He knew what the deal was. Now he also knew that he was going to lose his assistant coaches. Dan Campbell said, "Hey, this is difficult. It's hard to get back," and they didn't get back. Texans are going to have to pay some guys. It's going to be more difficult. These teams are going to get more experienced. The teams that had down years, they might get right. Texans got to figure this out. And that's the challenge that they're going to have, and they're going to have to figure it out. But it is laid out perfectly. The stuff that they can control, we'll see how that happens. But the stuff that they can't, and the way that it's laid out, it's really, really, really nicely laid out for them. Incredibly laid out. It's not, this will not happen again. You will not have a better layout than this. It's not going to happen. It's never easy, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to be laid out this perfect.
Swarm.
MHW Nation says, looking back on it, hiring D'Amico over Gannon was the best decision for the franchise. I don't even know. Was Gannon a finalist? I know for a fact, 100,000%, very reliable person, that Steichen was their second choice in this hiring cycle. Now, I don't know. Maybe Caserio would have wanted to hire Gannon. But their second choice would have been Shane Steichen. I know this for 100% fact. Take that to the bank. But yeah, obviously D'Amico, it was D'Amico or bust for me. I still think D'Amico's a good coach. His weakness, though, might be something that stops them from taking advantage of the opportunity they have in front of them. Now, his strength, though, and his success has put it to where I can make statements like the time is now an expectation. So he has something to do with that. He deserves a lot of credit for it. He set the table. He set the standard for this. And that's the standard that he should be held to, regardless of the feel-good stories and the attempts at, like, nobody can. No. D'Amico's the reason that they're there, and we'll see if he's able to overcome it. Nathan on the chat says, based on what we saw Sunday night, CJ and his wide receivers need to work on the deep ball. He's been inconsistent when it comes to connecting on the deep ball with Higgins. Him and Noel have pretty good chemistry. We know what him and Nico can do, but yeah, there's been a couple of instances. I was going through Caley, his primetime situations. There was a couple times where CJ didn't throw some catchable balls in the red zone. I'm gonna dive into the primetime Caley philosophy tomorrow. Can Nick handle the pressure? He's had some bad moments. Nick. He's had some really bad moments. Jonathan Clark says Josh Allen and the Bills fans think they have an easy path to win it all. Of course they do. It won't be any easier for them. They've had heroic efforts go up in flames against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's been the thorn in their side. Normally they've had losses to the Kansas City Chiefs. So yeah, they feel good about themselves too. They're the most battle-tested squad in this thing. They should feel good. There's a reason that I didn't want the Texans or didn't think the Texans should want to even travel to Buffalo. So yeah, Buffalo should feel like they have a good path. It's a very, very good path for them. I think it's a tough draw with the with Jacksonville. I think it is a tough draw. Jonathan, all love. I had to put you in timeout. You're getting too repetitive. You're repeating yourself more than Mike Jones, sir. I'll put you in a 5-minute timeout. Just ice up. You'll be back. It's a Woody Marks, Kamari Lassiter rest. I like your points. I don't mind reading it, but I mean, you're repeating yourself more than Mike Jones in the chat, brother. You're repeating yourself more in the chat. You know, the other funny thing I like about the chat on here that I just browse over. It's when someone asks you something that they can Google. Like asking opinions and stuff like that is part of it. It's kind of an opinion business, but like, who's the backup quarterback for the Steelers? Who's the Steelers running back? What was their record on this? It's like, look it up, man. Look it up. I'm not Google. You look it up. I'm not just going to sit here. Oh, we're talking about this and we plan the show. Oh, hey, at Jimmy Needledong. Yeah, the backup quarterback is blah, blah, blah. Come on, man. Got to bring a little more heat than that. JJ Sugar says, I'm just happy we're hitting the deep ball more this year than last. Yeah, CJ Stroud was very, very intimidated by the coverage last year and at times this year. But they have some deep threats. They have multiple deep threats. And I do wonder if Pittsburgh does decide to take away Nico Collins, are Higgins and Knoll able to take advantage? There is more potential when it comes to the deep ball. Will they throw it? I don't think it's necessarily always Nick Caley saying, don't throw the deep ball. I think sometimes CJ kind of hesitates. And I mean, sometimes it might work because you avoid the sack, you throw it away. Like some of these uncatchable balls, I think some of them are CJ missing, and some of them are, now you are just trolling me, asking me who the Steelers' third quarterback is. Y'all just spamming now. But yeah, it's sometimes he just doesn't want to. Like you hear CJ Stroud talk about the shell defense. It's a drinking game. CJ Stroud talks about the shell defense as much as I do talk about flipping the switch. I talk about flipping the switch. CJ Stroud talks about the two high shells.
High grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Not CJ me. Not CJ me. But that's what that is when it comes to CJ situation. He's got to flip the switch. Drink. Another interesting thing as you start to kind of look at the Steelers, if you think the Texans have trouble running the ball, Pittsburgh actually averages 5 less yards per game rushing than the Texans. That's kind of interesting. I actually like their running backs. I think they're underrated. I like Warren. I know he's been banged up, and then Gainwell's not your traditional guy, but he's had a good season. But they can't run the ball either. It's not like they have great weapons. But they do like to win ugly, like the Texans. This is kind of a street fight. Like as much as the Texans wanted to play the Steelers, I don't know that the Steelers are like that. Based on their style, I don't know that they're that overly disappointed that they drew the Texans. It's not really an explosive offense. Defense is good, but it's not like you're relying on your offense. Like the intermediate stuff that you like to do, you can perhaps take advantage of the weakness of the Texans defense. And Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith most recently have had a little bit of success against D'Amico Ryan's defense, and they've gone against this defense. Aaron Rodgers last year on Halloween, Arthur Smith in Atlanta 2 years ago. So maybe that's the other side of things as you kind of try to look at it from their POV. The Steelers probably aren't too upset that they drew the Texans just based on styles. Styles make fights, and there's a chance that they probably aren't too upset by it. Now, I bet Aaron Rodgers is a little bit worried that they might make him pretty uncomfortable in the pocket, and that's really the key to beating really Aaron Rodgers in his prime, but for sure the ghost of Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, they're probably not upset about drawing the Texans either. So that's another perspective there when it comes to that. So it's good times upon us. Shout out to the greatness of TDECU for sponsoring playoff coverage. TDECU, the official credit union of CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. TDECU.org/Texans. Get that fresh new Texans debit card. 15% off in the team shop. Thanks to TDECU for riding along. Thanks to you for riding along as well. We'll see you at Spanky's, and it'll be a fun time. It's going to be a fun time. Playoffs are upon us, and it's not the Saturday one. So it's kind of an interesting week. Texans off again tomorrow, and then we will be back on the practice field. I'll be there. Stoots will be there, and y'all will be there because we'll take you there with us. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate everyone for rolling through. Happy playoff time.
Not too plugged in, daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number one. You don't need to try your luck. locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localized, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the